At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
This is Bleck and Abdalla on Westwood One Sports. Here's Chris Bleck and Adam Abdalla.
Welcome in to Bleck and Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. Noon to 3 Eastern each and every day right here on Westwood One Sports. You can also listen to us on SiriusXM Channel 375 and all of our great radio affiliates across the country. I'm Chris Bleck along with Adam Abdalla, broadcasting live from Chicago. If you want to join the show today, you can call us at 310-840-4910. NFL Combine Week is here, Abdalla. Let's go.
I told you, the NFL season is here. The offseason was short. It was short and sweet. It is now officially the NFL season. You like to call it the Underwear Olympics. The Winter Olympics just ended. The new Olympics, the Underwear Olympics just started. We go from Winter Olympics to Underwear Olympics in just less than 24 hours.
It's a big week for guys working out in skimpy outfits. That's what that's what it is, right? Like, do we really need all of the skin tight gear to be worn like that for running a 40-yard dash? Like, wear football pants. What's the deal with that?
I don't know. I mean, you got to be aerodynamic, right?
So we will talk football all week long. The Combine taking place in Indianapolis. It's Bleck and Abdalla here with you on Westwood One Sports. But before we get to the football, we do have to say goodbye to the Winter Olympics. And boy, yesterday, what an event. We had Team USA take down Canada in the gold medal match of the hockey final for the men's side yesterday early. A lot of people across the country woke up early. I saw that bars on the East Coast were given special privilege to serve alcohol early in the morning.
They have to do that?
Yes, they did. People were having watch parties, and the golden goal, Jack Hughes wins it for the U.S.
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. Whether you woke up early, whether you just happened upon it after you started waking up, I think it was a great game. It's presented without commercial, I think, which was awesome. It was fast. The 3-on-3 portion, although short, but very sweet for the Americans. And, you know, the goaltending was great with Hellebuck. What do they say? Standing on his head?
Yep, that's
standing
what
on his head.
Yeah,
I don't think he was actually standing on his head, but he was amazing. And yeah, the Americans end up winning and ending a drought since 1980 for a gold medal. The Canadians, they haven't won a Stanley Cup since the 90s, and now they can't even say they're better than the Americans when it comes to the Olympics. So yeah, what do you got now, Canada? What do you got now?
Canada.
Huh? What do you got now?
That's what you call them, Canada?
Well, I mean, what are they? What are they now besides America's hat? Huh? What are they now besides America's hat?
The graphic where people are like, "What's so great about Canada?" When every city where a lot of people live in that country, it's all bordering the U.S.
Yeah,
and it's like, see, you just want to be like us, not realizing that most of that terrain going north is like, you can't live there.
Yeah.
It's too cold.
Yeah, you can't do anything else besides play hockey up
Geography,
there, so.
people. That's why people live close to the United States border. It's Bleck and Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports. Yes, the Winter Olympics are now over. We now set our sights on the next Olympic Games taking place in Los Angeles for the Summer Games in 2028.
2 years. 2 years. What sport can you learn in 2 years? Because that's like all the Winter Olympics were. If you can ride a horse and shoot a gun at the same time, start learning now. You got 4 years.
Or all the curlers that we were talking about.
Exactly.
Like, essentially, if we got a squad of 4 together, and we just practiced for 4 to 5 years, we could make the Olympics in curling.
Like you, me, Raj, Laura, we could figure it out.
Curling crew.
We could either be a curling crew. We could figure out how to do that thing where you ride the horse and shoot a gun at the same time. You could do any of those things.
Did you see the skiing uphill, but then you take the skis off and then you run up steps?
I'm not doing
And then
that.
you had to shoot something as well?
That's too much running. I want to let the horse do the running. I will do the shooting.
I will say there was like a period of time where they started adding the X Games sports to the Olympics. And it felt like, come on, the Olympics are supposed to be traditional.
Well, yeah,
but then the X Game sports like the half pipe and all these snowboarding, like now that's somewhat traditional. So now they're creating even more ridiculous sports. And in the Summer Olympics, they're going to have the flag football.
As long as breakdancing is gone, we're in a good place.
Remember that?
That was ridiculous.
Remember that lady?
That was
from Australia in the all green jumpsuit?
That was ridiculous.
All right, so the U.S. beats Canada. Great game yesterday.
Did you wake up?
Golden Goal. Halfway through. I didn't set an alarm for it.
I have a little 3-year-old alarm at home that naturally wakes up around 6:30 in the morning.
Does it go off the same way as an alarm clock?
Yeah, it's hitting me in the face.
Hey, Dad.
I'm hungry.
Smack.
I'm hungry. So I was awake and I watched the most of the second period and like half of the third period at soccer. With like it was like every parent either was watching a phone or was looking over someone's shoulder. No one was watching the kids. It was hilarious. Nobody was watching their kid.
I mean, let's be real. What's the better entertainment there?
It was the hockey. And then there was a mad dash to the cars to try to get back home before the end of the third period and into overtime, and then got to watch the end of it at home, which was great. But yeah, like it was like this weird like communal thing where everybody was not paying attention, and clearly everyone was watching hockey, which even if you weren't like a hockey fan, you get wrapped up in it for, the last 2 weeks.
So Raj posed this question to us. Raj is producing today's show, Bleck and Abdalla, as he does every day. He does a fantastic job here on the show. He asked, have we already seen the sports story of 2026 already. We're 2 months in. We're almost 2 months in. Have we already seen the sports story of the year? And my initial reaction is probably not, because this is the way it works. Early on, things happen, which are great in sports, usually the Super Bowl. And then by the time we get to November, December, and the yearly wrap-up conversations, we forget about all the stuff that took place early in that calendar year.
I mean, Indiana won a national championship not 3 months ago.
It's probably the sports story of the year.
I get it. This is something that hasn't happened in 6 years. So, this has been a long time coming. And the last time it happened, this is not the Miracle on Ice. They're not going to make a movie about this. This is not beating the Soviets and all that kind of stuff like that. But this is certainly an accomplishment. They were underdogs, and this is a big deal. But at the same time, I think Indiana is a bigger moment because it didn't come out of nowhere. They were a very good team, but just the change that Indiana went through from being the laughingstock of college football that they were for forever, and then being the number one team and winning a national championship, that's a big story. And then, we have an entire year of stories left that could happen. This is a big one. This is a great one. But I still think that there's a lot that could happen between now and December. And we're only a few weeks, not a few weeks, but a few months removed from Indiana holding. I mean, Fernando Mendoza hasn't even been drafted yet. We're talking about the combine right now that he's going to be a part of.
It's Bleck Abdalla. So we say goodbye to the Winter Olympics. The next Winter Olympics will take place in the French Alps. So Bleck Abdalla will be covering that when we get to that point in 4 years. It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports. As Abdalla mentioned, Mendoza and the NFL Combine this week taking place in Indianapolis. That is the focus, I think, of the sports world this week. Is now that the Winter Olympics are behind us, and it's a fantastic story that the men's U.S. team won that game yesterday in dramatic fashion. The women's team won the gold medal in the same type of style, a golden goal in overtime against Canada, 2-1. But when we kind of set our focus on what will be a major topic this week, it will be the happenings in the NFL around the NFL Combine. And you're right. What I was reading yesterday is that Fernando Mendoza is not likely to throw at the Combine, but because he is the hands-down number one expected pick of this year's draft and the expected only quarterback to go in the first round of this year's draft, I think we might get some good action this weekend when the quarterbacks throw at the Combine, because I think guys are going to try and prove that they're worthy of being number one or first round graded quarterbacks here in this year's class.
Yeah, everybody else should. Carson Beck, Ty Simpson, all these other guys will throw, and they should. They have a lot to gain. They should do every workout. And, Fernando Mendoza, he doesn't have anything to do but lose spots, right? There can only be stuff to detract from his draft status. He's the consensus number one pick in this draft. The only thing he can do is mess this up for himself. So don't throw at the Combine. Have yourself a pro day at Indiana where you have, and he said it, you don't throw to your guys. You're not in your own environment. So have your own pro day where you have your receivers, and you can make them look good too. If there's anybody at Indiana, and he even said it, he's like, I want to make my guys look good too. So why not do this for them? So I can understand where he's coming from. This isn't new. It's not like he's setting some trend at the draft where Fernando Mendoza is like, oh, this is coming out of nowhere. This is something that has been going on for years at the NFL draft. It's rare that we get more than one or only get one that isn't going to be throwing at the draft. It's rare that we get multiple quarterbacks that are going to be throwing at the draft. So the fact that we do get Ty Simpson and Carson Beck and all these other guys that can improve their draft stock, that maybe someone is willing to trade up for in the first round, or maybe move higher up into the second round to try to get, because they get desperate. Because you see it every year. Teams are going to get desperate once we get to a month from now in the NFL draft. And, whether it's the Jets who are going to move on from Justin Fields, whether it's the Steelers, who we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with them, whether it's the Cardinals who trade Kyler Murray, whether it's the Dolphins who either cut or trade Tua Tagovailoa, all those teams need quarterbacks, and also teams that don't have a plan for their future quarterback. What are the Rams going to do with after Matthew Stafford if he plays 1 or 2 more years? You need to start thinking about your future. So there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of spots that are going to be open. And right now, Fernando Mendoza is the number 1 guy. I don't have a problem with him not throwing. You saw it for years now. Guys don't throw. Sometimes they always do the interviews. Some guys, they only do the physical, they do the interviews, and they leave. And that's about it. And you don't do the shuttle run. You don't do any of that stuff anymore. So the combine has just become a place for these guys to talk to teams, to interview, and do the physicals and get out. And I completely understand why Fernando Mendoza is doing this and don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and we will have GMs around the NFL speaking to the media today, tomorrow, Wednesday. We'll have the on-field workouts Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I think the quarterbacks throw on Saturday. So that is something to keep our eyes on as the week kind of progresses. And I think what Adam is also kind of pointing to is, a lot of movement takes place this week in the NFL. So whether it be teams that are interested in a quarterback, teams that are looking to move on from a quarterback, there are 2 teams that we know of record right now, per reports from a week and a half ago, that the Cardinals and the Dolphins both want to trade their current quarterbacks. So seeing whether or not that takes place, some of that conversation, that rumor, all of that takes place this week with the Dolphins and the Cardinals with Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray. We'll see if that heats up. I think also we're going to see and hear some information about other players who may be on the move this offseason as well. You saw a story earlier today from Sports Illustrated where the quotes from someone that would know is suggesting that the Cincinnati Bengals are perhaps thinking about a franchise tag of Trey Hendrickson to then move him, and that may be something that takes place this week as well.
Yeah, Bengals insider was pointing to what Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals are going to do. Now, obviously, Trey Hendrickson is a free agent right now. He has no team. He was a Bengal. They franchised him last year, and he played, and he was out there, and he only played in 7 games, and he didn't finish the season. But now he is, as of the moment, free to sign with any team once the new league year starts. However, according to this Bengals insider, this is the quote: Hendrickson wanted to finish his career with the Bengals and desired a long-term contract with the organization. After a very brief holdout last summer, the franchise countered by giving Hendrickson a $14 million raise for 2025. We're not in it for a hip injury. He could have played that year and he didn't. But now they are gauging the interest of teams, and they could place the franchise tag on him and see if they could get something in return.
Yeah.
So they are going to use this week, the Bengals, to see how many teams are actually interested in the services of Trey Hendrickson, and might use this week to take advantage of that, tag Trey Hendrickson at the end of this week when the tag week is up, and use that and try to get something in return. To me, you're just going to make Trey Hendrickson more upset, because now Trey Hendrickson has to sit there and wait for a team to trade for him. And what are the Bengals going to try to overvalue him and try to get a first-round pick, try to get 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick? What are you going to get and try to hold teams for Trey Hendrickson? That's what this insider is saying now, that now the Bengals are going to gauge team interest and try to maybe tag Trey Hendrickson when the week is over.
We talked about it last week. The team that jumped to mind, it was the Indianapolis Colts. So there's a lot taking place in Indy, right, with the NFL Combine. I think the Colts would make sense. I think there's other teams Hendrickson would also make sense for. Now, obviously, do they want to spend the money on Hendrickson long term? I think that's where the debate between Hendrickson or trading picks and other interesting items for Max Crosby, I think that's where you get some of that conversation, right? Like Trey Hendrickson, you may not have to give up as much, but you have to pay. So if you're a team that's up against it with the cap situation, you're probably not likely to make that move. But if you're just looking at, hey, we got cap space, all we have to do is spend a little. Why wouldn't you make that move for Trey Hendrickson?
Well, the problem is he's injured, coming off of injury, and he didn't have a lot of sacks last year because of that injury. He's also older than Max Crosby. So what are you getting?
Well,
the mystery is out there.
Yeah, but there's a couple teams that we're talking about, all the different teams who are entering the situation this season where their biggest need is an edge rusher, right? One of those teams being Tennessee, another team being Washington. Both of those teams have a lot of cap space.
Yeah.
So for those teams, Hendrickson may make a lot of sense. When you look at the Colts, they're like middle of the pack. So as far as cap space, I think they're projected to have like $35 million of cap space this offseason. Now, if you have that conversation with some of the teams that are rumored towards looking at Max Crosby, that's a little different situation. The Chicago Bears, the Dallas Cowboys, they don't have that cap space. So Max Crosby may make more sense because he's under contract. So I mean, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it as we kind of look at this entire situation, especially now that SI is reporting that the Cincinnati Bengals may consider a franchise tag and trade.
The problem with that is if he was linked to the Colts because the defensive coordinator there, they've got a familiarity with each other, and he wants to play for the Colts. Before, the Colts were just thinking, all right, I got to give this guy a contract, give him a 2-year, 3-year contract, just pays him money, give him a nice signing bonus, that's it. Now, this is going to cost me a contract and a second-round pick and a third-round pick. Now I might not be so interested. There's a lot of holes on this team we got to fill, and I need to use a second-round pick on that. I need to use a third-round pick on this. Now teams might be more hesitant to sign Trey Hendrickson because the Bengals are getting greedy, and they've got every right to do that. They can use the franchise tag however they want to. But using that for Trey Hendrickson now puts the player in a bind because now the Bengals are now once again doing this to the player and creating a disgruntled player potentially because they want to get something before he walks out of the door, even though he's already out the door.
It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. If you want to join the conversation, talk a little football with Bleck Abdalla, you can call us at 310-840-4910. Will Aaron Rodgers play football this upcoming season? We have new details that may give us a clue on if Rodgers will return. We'll do that next.
The Cowboys are reportedly open to trading George Pickens. Could the superstar wideout be the missing piece for a top team like the Bills, Bears, or Broncos? Your free agent headquarters, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Is Bleck and Abdalla on Westwood One Sports. Here's Chris Bleck and Adam Abdalla.
I've said it this entire offseason. I think that Aaron Rodgers will be returning to the NFL. I think he will be playing football for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it looks like we have new information today from Tom Pelissero that may be the case. It's Bleck and Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. So the NFL Network and Tom Pelissero reporting that the odds are rising in the favor of Aaron Rodgers returning to the Steelers this offseason. If he's going to play, he could go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That would be the place that he would go to if he was going to return this season for this upcoming football season.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I thought it was weird that during, whether it was the playoffs or the final game of the regular season that we were watching, before it came down to that final field goal that the Ravens ended up missing that sent the Steelers to the playoffs, that everybody was talking about it like it was Aaron Rodgers' final game. Like, in what world did you ever think that it was Aaron Rodgers' last? He was playing well, and the Steelers looked like
it was good for the Troy Aikman, Joe Buck TV broadcast.
No, I get that.
That's what they were doing. They were hoping that was the final walk off the field at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. They covered it. They followed him all the way into the tunnel to say goodbye. Aaron Rodgers, his last game. Even though I felt the entire time he's going to come back. He's going to continue playing.
Yeah, and why wouldn't he? If he's going to come back, it's going to be one of two places. It's going to be the Steelers, or to me, it's going to be the Minnesota Vikings. And he completes the Brett Favre circle, which would be weird. I don't think he should do that, but I don't think he cares about that. Going to the Steelers makes the most sense. Mike McCarthy hired as their new head coach. They've got a familiarity, even though it ended a little bit tumultuously. They've even said they've mended fences. Mike McCarthy was even asked about it at his press conference. He said that they're good. And right now, to win their division in the AFC North, the Steelers, they're third, but they're plus 475, not by much. The Bengals are plus 230, and the Ravens are minus 115. And it seems pretty wide open to me. If you get Aaron Rodgers to come back and he has a decent season the way that he did last year, he still has a familiarity with all of the wide receivers, the offensive line. He knows Mike McCarthy's system. I don't count them out for anything because you've got Lamar Jackson, who's going to be having a new offensive system with their new head coach and new offensive coordinator coming in. And I can't count on Joe Burrow to stay healthy. And their defense is, unless they make a wholesale changes on that defense, and they're letting their best defensive player just walk or trade, whatever it is. Trey Hendrickson is leaving the Bengals. I don't see why the Steelers can't win this division with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. Of course, he's going to come back and play and try to win a Super Bowl again, make the playoffs, whatever it is. Aaron Rodgers, to me, is going to come back and play for the Steelers.
Yeah, and I think that's the best avenue for Pittsburgh right now. Also, they don't have a good plan at quarterback for the future. They are one of those teams that we've discussed over the last week or so on like trying to figure out where do you select a quarterback in this year's draft, because there is not really a good option when you're talking about guys in the first round that are not Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza's the guy. You're not picking him because you're not picking first.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you look at kind of this conversation and Pittsburgh picking 21st, is there someone this week that will pop that would make you believe that it is worthy of using the 21st overall pick on a quarterback, even though you're likely to have Aaron Rodgers for one last season to be the guy? We know how Aaron handles this stuff. He doesn't deal with the I'm going to bring along the young pup to learn thing well. He doesn't do that well. No. That's not Aaron Rodgers.
No.
He is the guy. He's the man. He's the one running the entire show. And so we saw how that worked with the Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love, and then Aaron Rodgers, not really having the best relationship to start. And so Pittsburgh's in an interesting spot right now because they have to plan for the future, but they're a team that's good enough that they may be able to win and get to the playoffs and win at a better level than what they got to this past season, just getting to the playoffs. Like, they are a team that if you're someone like Adam Abdalla, who believes that Mike McCarthy is going to be a true difference maker in the Steel City, then perhaps you got a team on your hands that can make a run at the conference championship.
I mean, listen.
I don't believe that. I think you're crazy for thinking that Mike McCarthy will have that type of impact on the Pittsburgh Steelers this upcoming season. But that's something you've been talking about here on the show for weeks. That's your angle. You keep going with this. This McCarthy.
You think that every NFL Films show should start with, or NFL Films movie show, whatever. Every DVD that NFL Films should start with John Harbaugh, who's won the last 10 Super Bowls apparently. How many Super Bowls does John Harbaugh have?
He has one.
Okay. How many does McCarthy have?
He has one.
Okay. How many? They've got the exact same record.
You give me the same argument every time. I don't care. I get it.
How many quarterbacks has Harbaugh developed? How many quarterbacks?
He's not a quarterback guy.
Okay,
he's a special team coach.
Guess who is?
Well, and that's where
Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy was brought in for two reasons for the Pittsburgh Steelers: stability within the organization because he knows how to run a team. He's had successful football teams. I don't care what you say about the Dallas Cowboys. They were in the playoffs. They made the playoffs on a consistent basis when he was there. Okay? He won with the Packers. He also developed Aaron Rodgers and he developed Dak Prescott. He came in for two reasons for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike McCarthy is there, stability within the organizations to continue to make the playoffs and to find and develop their next quarterback because that's what he does. So if you feel like you want to take, if Ty Simpson this year, whoever it is, Carson Beck, Ty Simpson, whatever. I keep going with Ty Simpson because Field Yates of ESPN had him mocked in his last mock draft at 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. To me, that would be very high to take Ty Simpson. But whatever, if you like him, you like him. If that's how you feel is your guy, take your guy.
He's planning on throwing at the combine.
Take your guy.
So he might very well be that type of player that surprises people, and then he gets some chatter that he's a guy that will be possibly picked in the first round.
If he ends up being the next franchise quarterback for the Steelers, is anybody going to look back and mock them for taking him at 21? No one's going to do that. If he ends up being a bust, then yeah, people are going to make fun of them for sure. But the point is that if he is there and can watch Aaron Rodgers for the next year and can learn under Mike McCarthy for a year or maybe even 2 years, if Aaron Rodgers decides to play for 2 years, then that's to the benefit of the Steelers. Then Aaron, you get to have your cake and eat it too. You get to have Aaron Rodgers there. You get to have Mike McCarthy. You have a chance at making the playoffs. Maybe you can go on a run. I doubt it. I don't think that they would be good enough to make a run at the playoffs, but they'd at least have a chance at making the playoffs. And you have Mike McCarthy who can develop, we know he can develop quarterbacks. I don't think Simpson or Beck or either of them are going to be good enough to be Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott, but there's always a chance. And if you don't think that they're good enough this year, draft one next year, because it's not like McCarthy's there for just one year. He's there for whatever. So if he's going to be there for a little, you've got
he didn't
time.
Take the job to just be one and done.
Well, he's there until Marcus Freeman wants the job from Notre Dame. So whenever he wants the job, Mike McCarthy's just keeping the seat warm.
Sure. Okay.
He's there to develop their next quarterback, whoever that is. And if it comes with courting Aaron Rodgers for another year or two, then so be it. You get an experienced quarterback who can get you to the playoffs because that's what they get. And that's why you have Mike McCarthy. You get to have the best of both worlds.
It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. So the report today from the NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, this is the quote: "The odds are rising that he comes back, as in Aaron Rodgers. I don't see it being any place else. If he's going to play, I believe it's going to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers." So that's Tom Pelissero on the NFL Network. I agree with that assessment. I thought the entire offseason here that Aaron Rodgers would be returning for the Pittsburgh Steelers and will be playing quarterback for the Steelers this upcoming season. And I think long term, you're right, Abdallah, if Ty Simpson is going to be your answer, he's going to have a hell of a week this week to earn that grade to be a first-round draft pick with the Steelers picking 21st. Now, with that said, and kind of the conversation for this entire week with this type of stuff is if he has a good week and he proves that he's worthy of being a first-round draft pick, will he last the 21? Because that could be a whole nother conversation as well. I don't expect someone like Ty Simpson to rise on the board all the way up to 2 or 3. Both of those teams need quarterbacks, the New York Jets and the Arizona Cardinals. But as you start to creep down past 10, you get multiple teams from 10 to 21 that could all be looking at a quarterback. You have Miami at 11. You have the Jets have a second pick at 16. So there are some options there. If Ty Simpson is good, if he throws well this week, and then the chatter is all about that he will be a first-round draft pick, the Steelers might be in a situation, if that's the guy that they want, like we were talking about, whether or not he'll be there at 21 will be a different story.
Yeah, it's all going to matter what happens, in a couple weeks here once we get to the legal tampering window and free agency starts March 11th with Malik Willis. Where does Malik Willis go? If Malik Willis signs with the Jets, that takes him out of it, obviously.
Yeah.
If something happens with Tua and the Dolphins sign Malik Willis, that takes them out of it, or the Cardinals, that takes with Kyler Murray, that takes, and Malik Willis goes there, that takes them out of it, obviously. So keep an eye on that because that's over a month before the NFL draft, and then you're going to get your answer there. If nothing happens with Malik Willis, though, and people are just waiting to see what happens with the draft and kind of how this shakes out, then that does create an interesting situation where it's kind of up in the air with whoever impresses, whether it's Simpsons, whether it's Beck, whoever it is, and that gives that person a chance to shoot up. Because teams always get desperate. There's also a chance, too, that one of these teams...
There's always desperate teams looking for quarterbacks.
Well, and if you're the Jets, right, and you have that 16th pick, why don't you just take that pick and trade back and go later in the first round and take your quarterback late? get a few extra picks. You've got holes you need to fill. Every team is not perfect. Like, obviously, the Jets are one of the worst teams in the NFL. They're definitely not perfect. You need a lot of bodies there. So move back, get your quarterback late in the first round, and pick up some extra picks. Or a team who needs one could jump back into the first round. We've seen that happen all the time. They trade with the Seahawks, who don't need their 32nd pick. They don't need that last pick in the first round. They're the Super Bowl champions. They can afford to move back and get a couple second-round picks or something like that, a third-round pick, and they can wait. And that team moves back into the first round so they can get the fifth-year option for Simpson or Beck, whoever it is. So there's going to be a lot of movement. I still think one of those guys is going to be taken in the first or second round because teams do get antsy when it comes to quarterbacks. And only one being there in the first round seems very weird for this year.
It does, because teams will get desperate.
Yeah.
You know that there's a stupid team out there. Those who are listening, who they know that their team is stupid, they're agreeing with me.
Yeah.
And there's somewhere there's a New York Jets fan driving in his car, nodding his head. Right? Like, there's a Cleveland Brown fan who agrees with us.
We'll be watching Carson Beck
because
this year.
That's how I've lived my life. Usually, up until the last 12 months, my team has been the stupid team.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm a lifelong Chicago Bears fan. And for most of my life, they've been the stupid team.
Yeah.
It's nice to feel like we actually have a quarterback now. That's different. Not used to that feeling. Feels pretty good.
Listen,
I like that.
Do you know how great the sound is going to be when, as Bears fans, that you and I, to take a moment to know that when Roger Goodell steps to the podium and he says with the 25th pick,
right,
Chicago Bears, and it's like, oh, the 25th pick. Oh, man. Whew, that sounds good.
We're going to continue talking football with you at 310-840-4910. So there's a rule there's a play in the NFL that everyone wants a rule change to. And the news is that there is not likely a change coming to said play. And I think it's fantastic. We'll tell you what that play is next.
The Cowboys are reportedly open to trading George Pickens. Could the superstar wideout be the missing piece for a top team like the Bills, Bears, or Broncos? Your free agent headquarters, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
This is Bleck and Abdalla on Westwood One Sports. Here's Chris Bleck and Adam Abdalla.
Hanging out with you noon to 3 Eastern each and every weekday right here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. If you watch the show on YouTube this week, make sure you like and subscribe to Bleck and Abdalla's show. New content posted daily. We also have our live stream up and running for the show. Make sure you check it out on YouTube, Bleck and Abdalla's show. And if you're watching the stream today, we have made it to our permanent home.
New digs.
We've made it to our permanent home. We're broadcasting live from WLS 890 AM here in Chicago. So we will still be broadcasting live from Chicago each and every day. I do want to say thank you as Bleck and Abdalla, as we got things started here on Westwood One Sports, our first show was on January 4th. So we're creeping up on 2 months here at the start of the show. We have been broadcasting out of Odyssey Chicago studios. So shout out to our great partners at Odyssey for the hospitality, taking care of us, letting us be roommates for the first 2 months of getting this show off the ground. And shout out to 104.3, The Score in Chicago, Mitch Rosen, Ryan Porth. And also shout out to Kenny Henderson.
Yeah, Kenny.
Kenny, you hear with Nick Costos each and every day. Kenny's Corner. Kenny having to put up with Bleck and Abdalla each and every day as he's going through his morning. So shout out to Kenny for taking care of Bleck and Abdalla. And so we were over there at the Score Studios for the first 2 months of our show. And now we're at our permanent home here at 890 AM WLS in Chicago.
Thanks for letting us sleep on the couch for a couple weeks. We did the dishes. We were nice.
Yeah, we cleaned up after ourselves.
Yeah, we're good roommates.
But if you're able to watch us on YouTube today and every day, Bleck and Abdalla's show on YouTube, you can now see our new studios here in downtown Chicago.
Yeah, they're great. They're beautiful. Windows.
We've got windows now, which is fantastic.
Yeah. You can see outside.
The studio previously, we didn't have windows.
Because we were there.
Yeah. We were in Kenny's corner.
We were in Kenny's corner.
Kenny's corner.
Kenny's got a very nice corner.
He does.
But he doesn't know what time of day it is. He only can tell by the clock. That's it.
So I saw this yesterday. So the NFL Competition Committee, the co-chair, Rich McKay, said on Sunday he is not anticipating an attempt to ban the tush push this year. Now, last year's off-season conversation, banning the tush push was the number one hot button topic that took place last year in the off-season. The entire time last year, I kept saying it's ridiculous that you want to ban a play just because one team is so good and successful at running said play. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was a loser mentality. That's the only thing I can say on the airwaves. I would say something else, but if you are just complaining that a play is just too good and you're not trying to find a way to solve it and to stop it yourself, you stink. That's it. That's the end of the story. So the fact that the NFL may not be considering this as a possible piece of discussion this offseason, I think is fantastic.
Well, I think that the evidence all season was that the refs were just letting everything go when it came to push and tushes, because every time someone would jump off sides or there would be a false start, they would just let it go because it was just evidence. So it seemed like the referees were trying to amass all of this footage to be like, look, we can't police this. You have to get this out of the game. And everyone just kind of assumed this offseason it would be gone from the game. But now we know what happens when you assume things. Chris looks like an ass.
Yeah.
And he has once again, because now we will be pushing tushes throughout the season next year, which I agree with you. If you find a way to stop them. And look, the Eagles' offensive line isn't what it used to be, so maybe they weren't as successful as they were last year at it. And like other teams have tried, and they just can't replicate it. And I think it's fine. If you can't stop it, find a way to stop it. And look, you have to find better ways to police what they're doing. They were starting early and getting early jumps a lot of the times.
That to me is a different conversation.
You have to find a way
not the actual play
to referee it.
The officials need to call false starts.
Yes.
That to me is a bigger issue.
Yes.
The moment the officials started to call that whistle occasionally and throw the flag on the Eagles with the false start, they didn't seem to have such a great advantage that they once had. And, the two teams that ran it the most last season, the Eagles and the Bills, for the most part, we saw teams who had an idea on how to attack and how to kind of disrupt the success that those teams are having. Now, Buffalo in the Jacksonville game essentially used that play to go down the field and score at the end to win that game in the playoffs. So give credit to Josh Allen for being able to do that. I think also not everyone has a quarterback like Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen to be able to be crafty enough to always get that extra yard.
Yeah.
And we've seen different tactics. I know you and I are huge Chicago Bears fans. We saw the Bears use a tactic where it was like stand them straight up and have the cornerbacks come from the side and rip the football out. Mm-hmm. Nahshon Wright with a big fumble forced against the Eagles on that Black Friday game, that nationally televised game that most people saw. Mm-hmm. So I think there's enough out there of teams who are able to try and stop it and limit it a little. And that's good enough for me. I don't need a ban on a play. If someone's just really good at it, then try and stop it somehow.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that as defenses start to get better, like, look, ask Mike McDonald what he thinks of it. Is Mike McDonald going to drop a play, the head coach of the Seahawks, and find a way to stop it? I think he can find a way to stop it. You just said it. The Chicago Bears, who led the league in turnover, were great at turning the ball over and had, guys that were ripping the football out left and right. They found ways to stop it. So find a way to stop it. And teams have, and I think that people were in an uproar about it, and they tried their best, and I think they figured out that last year was their best chance, so we're not even going to propose it this year because last year was your best chance to get it banned. And it's a play that I don't really think it's a health issue because they tried to say that. And I don't see a lot of it. We haven't seen injuries come from it. Like we've seen offensive linemen be like, you don't want to be at the bottom of that pile, but we're used to it. So like we can do it. But it's not like guys get hurt left and right.
It's just guys piling onto each other.
Yeah, it's like you don't want to be on the bottom with a bunch of 300-pound dudes on top of you. I get that, but
it's not necessarily like a high impact play.
No, it's uncomfortable.
Which was the kickoffs.
Yeah,
and they saw a great result from changing the kickoff rules. Which, yeah, it worked. That worked. Mm-hmm. I'll give them credit for that. That made for more kickoffs to be returned instead of what we were seeing 2 years ago. But when you see the impact of the tush push take place, you're right. I don't believe that there's this high level of injury that's taking place because of the tush push.
No, it's not like Jalen Hurts got hurt doing it or offensive lineman has to be carted off or other guys are, and you saw teams try to like fly over the top and try to do that. And they get, next time you do that, I think you can actually, what was the threat that they can take points off the board if you do it after a certain amount of time, which I didn't know you could do that.
Well, that was the Commanders tried their own way of handling it by just trying to start a fight.
Yes.
Every single time the Eagles would implement it. But that wasn't going to work. But I think what we saw were enough teams had enough of a strategy to try and stop it last year that we saw some of that. It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. We see this and we understand that flying is something that's not great on the body, like air travel, right? Like it's not great. So research out of New Zealand, this university has conducted research, and they have a survey that found that 15% of men and 6% of women admit that they are more likely to cry when watching a film on a flight than they would if they were just watching it at home. Is there something with the altitude that's forcing 15% of men to cry more while watching a film while they're in the air?
I don't know what it could be. Maybe it's because I do know that alcohol and certain intoxicants can affect you more with altitude, and taste can be altered at altitude. They say like if you eat certain things, like if you have a Bloody Mary or tomato juice, like sweet and sour tastes kind of go away at altitude. I don't know what that would have to do with crying, because maybe if you drink more, if you have a drink, the alcohol affects you more.
Well, what are you watching? Like, are guys watching The Avengers?
Well, no, I'm just saying.
And then they're having a good cry?
Yeah, when they all show up, maybe. When they all show up to help, yeah. I'm just saying that after you have a drink, maybe, or two, maybe it affects you more, and you're a little more emotional.
Have you had a good cry on a flight?
Not on a flight, no. I stay away from those because I know I don't want to.
I know what will trigger me is if you flip on Marley and Me.
Yeah.
While I'm in flight, like I'll be a mess by the time we land.
Don't put on a Toy Story or a Monsters Inc. on a plane for me. I'm not. No.
You're right. Toy Story 3.
Not doing that.
When he gives away the toys. Yeah, that's that. I could see that.
No, when Boo goes away. We're not doing that on a plane.
15% of men cry. 6% of women admit they cry more while flying compared to just watching at home.
No, I'm not.
I've never cried on a flight while watching a film.
Well, we're going to change that next time. Yeah, I want to make you watch Coco or something.
When you and I head to the draft, you're going to make me watch. It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. More football coming up.
This is Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the Tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes.
The Falcons will continue to use him. They've got a new coach in Kevin Stefanski, so if they want him to be a part of the team, they've got a weapon there.
Yes.
You know, unless
if they want to use him, yes,
well,
they'll use him.
I mean,
yes.
this is ideally a franchise tag to negotiate an extension, and not just a let's play on the franchise tag. So, that's usually the case with all of these. If the Cowboys end up franchising George Pickens, as Rappaport is reporting, that is a let's trade George Pickens and get something back. That's going to be the exception.
Yeah, and we discussed this last week, is that when you look at the different situations for trade options for Max Crosby, the Cowboys being able to franchise tag George Pickens and then adding the 20th pick overall in the first round to try and lure and trying to negotiate with the Raiders to land Max Crosby, that could be a play. So we kind of saw this coming, that the Cowboys would franchise tag George Pickens. The Cowboys were also busy this weekend giving a new contract to Javonte Williams, 3 years, $24 million for the running back, who was really good last season. So the Cowboys are busy. You give a new deal to Javonte Williams, you franchise tag George Pickens, and the question there will be what's coming next. Will Pickens be a player with the Cowboys this upcoming season, or is this being done to then trade George Pickens, perhaps, to the Raiders?
I think this is going to be to trade him. I don't think you're going to have CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on your roster at the same time. CeeDee Lamb gets a contract and, signing a 4-year, $136 million in 2024. You're not going to pay both those guys. And Pickens is going to get a big deal from someone. You just want to get something in return for George Pickens. And if you can get a second-round pick or whatever, if you're going to use him as part of a Max Crosby deal to add a defensive end, even though, you had Michael Parsons in your building, you could have just paid him. Jerry Jones, what are you doing? But now you try to get something in return. If you use the pick you get in return for an edge rusher, or you use him, like I said, as part of a Max Crosby deal, or maybe you use, I don't think that the Bengals need another wide receiver, obviously, because they have got two of the best in the NFL. But you got to do something with Trey Hendrickson. So now you've got a franchise tag player, maybe another with Trey Hendrickson if the Bengals start to do this. Now, with about a week left with franchise tags to be handed out, you're starting to see some motion with this, especially as everybody from the league is now heading to Indianapolis for the NFL Combine, with all the GMs, all the front office people being in the same place. These negotiations start to ramp up a little bit.
Yeah, the Combine starts today in Indianapolis, like Abdalla said. It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. So the news right now, besides George Pickens expected to get the franchise tag from the Cowboys, you have the franchise tag being handed out to Kyle Pitts. Now, we talked about Kyle Pitts last week, and I best tight end in football type of thing. And to this point in his career, we just haven't quite seen that. Last season, 88 catches on 118 targets for 928 yards, 5 touchdowns for Kyle Pitts. 5 touchdowns was a career high because in the touchdown category, we really haven't seen Pitts put up the production that I thought a lot of people expected from him entering the NFL. And then also the usage from the Falcons, especially around the goal line, wasn't necessarily what I thought would take place. And I know fantasy owners, if you play fantasy football, he is definitely a name that people pick, and then he continuously disappoints because he doesn't get into the end zone. 5 touchdowns this past season. 2024, he had 4. He had 3 in 23. He had 2 in 22 and 1 in his rookie season. So he's progressively gotten into the end zone more as he's gone through his career, which I think is a bit surprising. The most yardage he has had in a season was his rookie year. He had over 1,000 yards in his rookie season, has not gotten to those numbers. He's dealt with some injuries as well, but you see it right there with Kyle Pitts. I think he's extremely talented.
Yeah.
I think he is a player that you pay this player, you franchise tag, you negotiate a long-term contract. You have a player that you picked 4th overall in the first round in 2021, and you expect that now on this new deal that he will then take it to even higher levels as far as this new offense with Kevin Stefanski. We don't quite know how their quarterback situation is going to play out. Michael Penix, if he can stay healthy, is that the case? But I do like this for Kyle Pitts, and I do think he's a player that's ascending and not someone that you would sell the stock on now. I would try and keep Kyle Pitts around.
Well, if you dig into the numbers with Kyle Pitts, yeah, the touchdowns aren't there. He only had 5. He had, like you said, the 928 yards going up 300 yards from the year before. His targets went up, but if you look at it, he also had 30 more first downs. He went from 21 first downs to 51 first downs, and his yards after the catch went from 270 to 400. He also had a career low in drops. He went from 4 drops to 2 drops. I know that's only 2, but it makes a huge difference. But he really became reliable when picking up first downs. And so when you have a reliable tight end, when you need a first down, he picked up 30 more first downs this year. And he stayed, he played in all 17 games, so that's huge. But when you need a fail-safe, and you have someone that you can go to and pick up a first down, that is massive. Like, I know you want the touchdowns, but when you try to move the chains and you're trying to stay on the field, and he can be a go-to for you whenever you need to pick up that first down, that's massive. He also had 44 receptions per broken tackle. So he's making dudes miss. Yeah. He's great. So
he's tough. He's tough to take down.
You just have to get him more receptions inside the end zone, and then Kyle Pitts can really take off. He's really great, obviously. The first downs, the yards after the catch, breaking tackles, all that kind of stuff. But now it's on Kevin Stefanski and this new coaching staff to come in. First of all, the GM has got to work out a new deal with him. This front office has got to work out something with him long term. But also, how are you going to get Kyle Pitts to go from converting first downs to now getting touchdowns? Because that's going to be the biggest X factor from him. If he can get more touchdowns, if he can turn into a 10 touchdown guy a year, 12 touchdown guy a year, that's going to make a huge difference for the Falcons offense.
If we just look at the past situation for the head coach, Kevin Stefanski, being in Cleveland last season, now the new head coach for the Atlanta Falcons, Harold Fannin Jr., tight end, and also David Njoku, tight end. Both were pretty productive tight ends for the Browns last season. Combined, they had 10 touchdowns. 6 for Fanning Jr., 4 for Njoku. Also, with the yardage, both players combined get you to 1,000 yards. So I'm guessing in Stefanski's offense with the Falcons, I mean, we know it's not a secret. Cleveland's quarterback play wasn't great last year, but they got production out of the tight ends. So if Stefanski can get something out of Michael Penix utilizing Kyle Pitts, you're expecting there to be production there for that player, and it's going to be more than what we've seen to this point in his career. I think that's why, he's one of those players, like I said, you want to buy the stock now because I think he's going to be better in a better offense suited to utilize tight ends.
And I think that's what Stefanski's going to bring, that's what he's going to be brought in to do. We talked about how he got a raw deal in Cleveland, having the 13 different quarterbacks while he was there, having to deal with everything from Deshaun Watson in the final couple years to whatever he was dealing with last year with 2 different quarterbacks with Gabriel and Shador and Deshaun Watson for a little bit. It was just a mess over there. So having stability there, trying to sign weapons and extend weapons here, I think this is going to work for everybody as long as they can work out a deal. Having a franchise tag and giving more time to work out a deal before this period ends, this negotiating period, once you franchise tag a player. So as long as they can get a deal done with him and he doesn't, I'm not going to play on the franchise tag type of thing, then you can bring in Kyle Pitts and continue his development. I mean, look, in 1 year, he made a decent jump. The key is going to be the touchdowns. You got to bring in the touchdowns. As long as you can do that, it's going to be good for Kyle Pitts.
Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. Kyle Pitts is franchise tagged by the Falcons. The Cowboys are expected to place the franchise tag on George Pickens. And we are also discussing how the last week and over the weekend talking about running backs heading towards free agency. And that's where we see with the Dallas Cowboys that they are signing Javonte Williams to a 3-year, $24 million deal that was announced yesterday, that was reported yesterday. So Williams back in the mix, running back for the Cowboys. The Cowboys offense is going to be good. And the story with the Dallas Cowboys this entire offseason is going to be, can they get enough help defensively to play at a level that may not be top 10, but can they get to, say, 20 and allow this offense to be as good as it is? Williams back in the mix with Dak and CeeDee Lamb. And who knows how the George Pickens situation plays out. Maybe they franchise tag him and keep him. Who knows? I'm guessing he'll get traded.
Mm-hmm.
If they can improve defensively, this Cowboys team could be a team that we're looking at that can make a playoff run. And I think that's my eyes are set on Dallas and how they use Pickens, franchise tag, and is this all a play to go after Max Crosby?
I think it could be because we know that the Raiders are going to need wide receiver help. Pickens, we talked about the three options, the three wide receiver options that they could be looking at hypothetically. It was the Bucs, it was the Bears, and it was the Cowboys. And the Cowboys had the best option. You franchise George Pickens, you trade him to the Raiders. They have to work out a deal with him. That's their problem. And you trade them also a pick. That's a really good pick for them to get as well. It's like, I think they've got the 20th pick overall. And so with that, you can have 2 first-round picks for the Raiders, and you get Fernando Mendoza, you get the 20th overall pick, you can add to your offensive line, and then the Cowboys get Max Crosby. You bolster up your defense. If they can be, like you said, middle of the pack, then maybe they have a chance at making the playoffs this year, because Dak Prescott had a great year last year. Like you said, the offense was great. It wasn't the offense's problem. The offense was putting up points.
Yeah.
It was the defense. The offense would have had to put up 45 points a game to stop anybody, to win any games. Dak he wasn't having like an MVP year like he did the year before he got hurt.
Yeah.
But he could have been like 4th or 5th in consideration for it.
I mean, Dallas's defense was the worst in football. 32nd in points given up last year. They were giving up 30 points per game. You can't win football games. You can't win in playoff games if that's the way your defense is going to play. But if Dallas could jump to, say, the same level that Tampa's at, Tampa giving up 24 points per game, 20th in the NFL. If you're giving up 24, you have a chance. You can at least get to the playoffs because Tampa is right there in the conversation. Indy had a good year. They're 21st, giving up 24 points per game. Detroit gave up 24 points per game, 22nd in the league. And Chicago gave up 23. They were 23rd, giving up 24 points per game. So you can make the playoffs giving up that amount of points each week. Your offense has to be great, though. And I would argue from those teams, right, for Tampa to take a next step, for Indy to take a next step, for Chicago and Detroit to take a next step, they're going to have better defense than what we saw last year also.
Well, the question, too, with the Cowboys is if you do franchise George Pickens and you trade away George Pickens and you get Max Crosby, that's all well and good. How do you replace George Pickens? Like, that's production you have to replace. Like, CeeDee Lamb's great and everything, but you're losing another great wide receiver. Like, you've got to replace that production. And so are you drafting a guy? Are you that pick that you're sending? Like, let's say that trade with the Raiders happens, okay? And they lose the 20th overall pick. Where are you getting? Are you getting your wide receiver in the second round? Are you signing another wide receiver? What are you doing to replace George Pickens? That production is going to be tough to replicate. And so again, like, that offense is going to take a hit. So that defense is going to need to be that much better, assuming that you're not going to be able to replicate that. Like, you can come close to it, and you hope to draft a guy, but is a rookie going to be as good as George Pickens? You can't assume that. Just like, okay, you can say we're going to trade away Micah Parsons and just draft the next Micah Parsons. No, you're not. You can trade away Max Crosby and hope to draft the next Micah Parsons. No, you're not. Like, you can trade away George Pickens. You're not. You can maybe draft the next George Pickens.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, CeeDee Lamb battled injuries last year.
Yeah.
But George Pickens led the team in receiving yards with 1,400 yards. He had 93 receptions and 9 touchdowns.
Okay.
CeeDee Lamb last year and played in 3 fewer games. He had 1,000 yards receiving, 75 catches, and only 3 touchdowns for CeeDee Lamb. So you're right. That's a lot of production. And it's a 1-2 punch that made the Dallas offense so potent. So, I mean, what is better if you're a Cowboy fan? Would you rather move on from George Pickens, who at times has been kind of a difficult personality?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you like that your quarterback has now a running back, 2 wide receivers, and you're putting together a pretty good offense in a league where we know offense matters. And offense matters more now than it has ever before in NFL history. And I get it. We just watched a team win the Super Bowl with the best defense, and you had 2 defensive-minded head coaches into the Super Bowl. But I think the arc that we've seen in the league recently is that offense is what wins and leads to high-level success in the NFL.
Well, look, and with the 20th pick, too, like I've said it, you're not going to get, like at the 20th pick, you're not going to draft the next Max Crosby. But you could find a guy that might develop into something that's really good. You know what I mean? That could develop into something great. It's a deep edge rusher class. It's not gone at 20, but you can still draft a really good player, a really good edge rusher at 20. So why not keep the production and sign George Pickens to an extension and then draft an edge rusher and build your defense through the draft? I know that's not going to appease Cowboys fans and especially Jerry Jones. Like Jerry Jones wants studs on that defense. But again, you had one and you let him leave. You traded him away. Like, what do we do? Like, again, you let him leave.
It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. So Ian Rappaport, NFL Network, has it. The news is the Falcons are placing the franchise tag on Kyle Pitts with the Falcons. And then the Cowboys are expected to place the franchise tag on George Pickens as well. So we'll keep our eyes on the latest NFL news and information. It's Bleck Abdalla. Coming up next, let's talk about this. Fernando Mendoza is choosing not to throw this week at the Combine. Will that help or hurt him? That's next.
Tyreek Hill has been added to the free agent pool. If the future Hall of Famer is recovered from his injury, could his game-changing speed return to Kansas City? Or will the cheetah roam in a new domain? Talking all things NFL free agency. Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
This is Bleck and Abdalla on Westwood One Sports. Here's Chris Bleck and Adam Abdalla.
Broadcasting live from downtown Chicago, I'm Chris Bleck with Adam Abdalla, Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. We now go on out to Denver, Colorado. That's where we find Raj producing the show today. Hello, Raj.
Hello, Bleck. Hello, Abdalla. Happy Monday, guys. Ready for some one-on-one?
Let's play a little one-on-one with Raj. Yes,
All
we're ready.
right,
Let's go.
fellas. First up, the number one American star of these Winter Olympics was Alyssa Liu, Connor Hellebuck, or Jack Hughes. Abdalla, the number one star. You can only pick one.
Oh, man, I can only pick one.
Only one. Raj said only one.
Oh, that's so tough.
You can only pick one.
Okay, so based on my feed, I still think I'm going to go with Alyssa Liu. She went from I saw something, she went from 600,000 followers to on Instagram to 4.1 million in a day.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's nuts. And she is all over the place. I know the Americans won gold and that's going to be everywhere. But again, common denominator around the entire United States, I think more people watch the figure skating.
Humans?
More humans.
Not robots?
Watch the figure skating.
Okay.
I think more of our
people. You really made a point to say that people.
Well, I think more of our demographic, men 18 to 54, watch the men's hockey. I think more people watched the figure skating. So I think it's Alyssa Liu.
I'm going to say it's Alyssa Liu. A no doubt answer, too.
We agree.
Like it's not even close. She is the story of the Olympics. From being someone that at age 16, participating in her first Olympics, to then the year after retiring from the sport, to then decide, I want to get back into it because I love it. And she showed up without any pressure on her shoulders and performed the program of her life to win gold and to shock everyone. And then you factor in what Abdalla is saying, that she essentially, for most sports fans, was kind of like an unknown to now having millions and millions of followers and fans, and she's only 20.
Yeah.
So theoretically, 4 years from now, she should be able to defend her gold medal in figure skating. I think Alyssa Liu by far is the story of these Olympics.
All right, next up, guys,
Raj?
Francisco Mendoza choosing not to throw this week. Does or does not change your view on him? Bleck?
Yeah, Fernando Mendoza not throwing this week doesn't change my view because I'm used to quarterbacks at the top of the draft board who are expected to go number 1, 2, or somewhere within the top 10. I expect those quarterbacks not to throw at the combine. I have my questions about him, but he is by far the best quarterback in this year's draft. So it doesn't change my viewpoint on him because I kind of expected this to begin with. This is how quarterbacks and their agents, they want to throw in the comfort of their own facility when they have their pro day, and he'll throw at the Indiana Pro Day. So I don't have a problem with it.
It doesn't change my view of him. I can't wait to see his media availability because he's, I don't want to say he's a weird dude, but.
I think you just said that he's a weird dude.
No, he's not a weird dude.
He's kind of weird.
He's just
He's a
very
bit
like
weird.
upbeat and like wholesome and like. And then he swore on the podium after he won, and it was like very out of character. He swore, and like everybody's like, "Oh man, Fernando Mendoza swore. He's definitely a Raider now." Like, so I'm very interested to see his I'm more interested in Fernando Mendoza's media availability than anything else of him at the combine.
All right, next up. And by
He's
the
a
way,
weird
caution.
dude, Raj.
No,
Let's-
he's not. I don't have anything else to
It's
like
kinda
another
like when
better
you say
way
with
to.
all due respect, and then that just gives you carte blanche to like say whatever you want about somebody afterward. I'm not going to say he's a weird dude, but here's 90 reasons he's a weird dude. All right. Next up on Bleck Abdalla's one-on-one, who has the better idea to fix NBA tanking? And we cannot use Chris Bleck's idea of smoothing the odds. Okay, we are choosing between
man.
Charles Barkley. His idea is owners can't raise ticket prices if they're below 500. Every lottery team gets one ping pong ball, which is basically Bleck's idea. And we remove pick protections in trades. No more, it's protected if it's a top 3 pick or a top 5 pick. All right, so do we like Barkley's idea or ESPN's Tim Bomptons, who had at the All-Star break now wins go towards improving your lottery odds? So the team that wins the most games after the All-Star break has the best odds amongst those in the lottery. Which idea is better to fix tanking, Abdalla?
Man, I think. All right, this is a cop out, but
What a surprise coming from Abdalla, right,
I know,
Raj?
right?
Cop
Yeah.
out answer.
Adam Fence riding
the answer
Abdalla.
the answer is a combination of them both. The answer is at the All-Star break, a team's wins would go toward improving its lottery, but I also want to throw in you can't raise ticket prices if you're below 500. Like, so Bontemps has the right, his is the best because it improves the quality of basketball, but I also want to throw in you can't raise ticket prices if you're below 500. I love that aspect of it. So Bontemps has the best idea, but the ticket price thing is hilarious, and I love that part of it.
Charles Barkley's right in this question. Bontemps, because here's what hurts Tim Bontemps' idea. What if there's a team that has a very poor first half of the season, but they're really, in reality, expected to be a good team and then go on a run? Like, at that point, you're now winning despite the bad hand you were dealt early in the season. Like, it could be injury related. It could be a lot of different things. We've seen teams, talk to the San Antonio Spurs. How did they land Tim Duncan? Well, yeah, David Robinson was out the season before they landed Duncan, even though they were a team that was very good in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
So he joined a loaded Spurs team. I think the answer, what Barkley suggested, either finding teams that are under 500 or just doing something like that, or giving every team the same odds. One ping pong ball, whatever it is. Not that someone last week on the show had that idea, but I think if Barkley said it, I think it carries more weight.
Barkley ain't listening to this show.
So I'm gonna have. Well, I'm not saying he's taking my idea. I'm just saying it's a smart.
You kind of said it.
I'm saying because I said it last week, I'm going to agree with someone else who's also saying it. Okay. I think it's a good idea, so I'm going to go with Barkley on that.
All right, next up, guys, the veteran who will go farthest with a new team this season. So I'm going to make you have to jump some hoops in your mind of where they're going to go. The veteran who's going to go farthest in the playoffs with a new team will be Max Crosby, George Pickens, or Trey Hendrickson. Bleck?
All right, this is easy. Raj, cue up the Homer music.
All right.
The player that will go the farthest this upcoming season, Max Crosby, because the Chicago Bears will get to the NFC Championship game. There you go. Max Crosby in a Bears uniform will get the farthest of any of these players who may be on the move that we're talking about.
All right, let's get some objective journalism from Abdalla. What do you got, Adam?
Yeah, so let's see.
Objective journalism from Abdalla.
He's going to agree with me.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
You agree. Yes, you do.
I don't think the Bears are going to pull off that move. The answer is going to be, oh, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The answer is going to be George Pickens because he's going to be a Buffalo Bill.
Whoa!
Ooh, that'd be big.
That's surprising.
That would be big. Okay, I like it. I
that
like
is
it. Abdalla
surprising.
got off the fence on that one. All right, next up, the NFL Scouting Combine, the Underwear Olympics plus the interviews. Should or should not affect a player's draft value? We've heard that saying, oh, I just see the tape. That's all I need to say. All right, Bleck, should it or should it not affect a player's draft value?
I think it should. I think every piece of information that teams can get on a prospect, I think matters. And so I think that it should matter. It shouldn't make your final decision on whether or not you draft a player. I think watching the tape and watching the games in college matter the most. That to me is the way I would handle it. I always think the actual competitions are how you see how a guy handles himself, the attention to detail, the ability to rise up to a challenging situation. That to me matters more. But I think this stuff this week does matter a little bit in the draft profile.
Yeah, I think it does matter. I mean, obviously the physicals matter because sometimes you find things that a player didn't know that they had, health conditions that they didn't know that they had. So that obviously affects things. But I think these interviews can go a long way. Like, obviously, some of these teams get carried away with the questions. I think they should be televised. Like, I think that would add an interesting element. We got a whole network devoted to the NFL. You got to fill programming.
Could you imagine?
Televise these interviews. Why not?
Would pull their clients off. They'd be like, we're not doing this, and this is going to be...
Well, it also could expose some of those... we always hear the story after the draft.
Yeah.
That there's teams asking weird questions.
Yeah.
Right? Like weird stuff about players' moms and stuff. Like, and then they claim we're trying to throw the player off.
Yeah, okay.
We're trying to rattle the player.
Sure you are.
Yeah.
Sounds like you need HR.
Televise everything. Televise everything, except for the physical. You don't have to televise the physical. Televise everything else.
All right, Abdalla.
wants to see it.
No. I don't want to see that part. I don't want to see that part
of it. All right, Abdalla, who makes better faces of the NBA? You know, we're a week removed now from All-Star Weekend. The Americans, guys like Cade Cunningham and Anthony Edwards, or the foreigners like SGA and Wemby?
Foreigners.
Okay. This is not an Americans versus foreigners thing. This is not an Americans versus foreigners thing.
We just had USA
Anthony
versus
Edwards.
the world last week.
No, I understand that. But I would have said this regardless if you would have just named the four players. Anthony Edwards is my favorite player in the NBA. He is hands down must-see TV for me every single night that he plays. I wish the team would be better so he could become the face of the NBA. I love Anthony Edwards, and I wish he could become the face of the NBA. I love his attitude. I love the way he plays the game. I think Anthony Edwards should be the face of the NBA, and if the Timberwolves were better, he could be the face of the NBA. Like, on any other team, he would be the face of the NBA. Like, on a good team, he'd be the face. But I love Anthony Edwards. He's hands down my favorite player.
Insulting to Kobe White and all those Bulls players. Abdalla likes a non-Bull more than you.
Sorry.
I think the answer, Raj, is it's the Americans, but not the young guys that you listed. And I think that's a problem for the NBA right now, is that the face of the league are the old heads. Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Steph Curry. The last generation, those guys are the face of the league, and we're waiting to see if the Americans, or the foreigners, as you guys put it, take over as the face of the league. Like, I'll tell you right now, no matter how talented and how good Luka and Jokic are, they're not it. They're not the face of the league because they're too busy complaining to the refs on every single play. Both of them. Did you guys see the Celtics-Lakers game yesterday? Multiple times, Luka is just stopping mid-play to argue and to yell at the officials. Meanwhile, Jaylen Brown and Pritchard are running back the other end and hitting open buckets on the Lakers' ass. So I think the answer is Americans, but it's the old guys. It's LeBron, Steph, and Durant.
All right, I'm going to need you guys for the next one to play a little mind trick here because you both love the Bears. I want you to take yourself to a world where Caleb Williams doesn't exist. Take yourself back to those days, okay?
Oh, the cold days here in Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah.
If my team needed a veteran quarterback this offseason, I'd rather they add Malik Willis, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, or Kyler Murray. Bleck?
Kyler Murray. Final answer. Done. I think that's easy. I would not go with Mac Jones. I'm very skeptical about Malik Willis. And Tua Tagovailoa, I just don't think. I think the shine is off that. I just don't think he's ever going to be what we thought he was coming out of college. So I'm going to go with Kyler Murray. I think he has the most upside.
Can I have the crab juice?
Explain the joke to people who don't get it.
It's a Simpsons reference. It's an old Simpsons reference.
Yes,
Watch
you're
TV.
old.
Watch TV.
They don't.
Watch TV.
People don't anymore.
Kids.
Kids don't watch TV.
We're 40. That's not that dated of a reference.
We're washed.
It's not that dated of a reference.
Raj, did you get crab juice? Did you get the reference?
No, I didn't, but I agree I'm washed, so I'll go along with that.
Laura, did Laura get the joke?
No, there's no chance Laura got that reference.
You think
there's
Laura
no
running
chance
the audio
in the
in Culver
world
City? Do you think that she got that?
That she got that reference. The answer, you're right. The answer is Kyler Murray. Because Tua is one hit away, unfortunately, from being out of the NFL. Mac Jones, he's just a game manager. In the right system, he can be very, very good. I'm not going to say great. He can be very, very good in Shanahan's system. Malik Willis, I don't know what he's going to look like starting 17 games. I think he's a backup for a reason. Kyler Murray is talented, and in the right system, I think with the right coaching, with the change of scenery, I think can still be very good. So you're right. The answer is Kyler Murray.
And finally, guys, the 2026 NFL season will be most impacted by this offseason's moves in free agency, moves via trade, or the NFL draft. Abdalla?
I think it's going to be trades because I think we're going to get Max Crosby. I think we're going to get Trey Hendrickson. I think you're going to get George Pickens. I think you're going to get a Kyler Murray. I think you might get. I don't think you're going to get Tua because I think they might just end up releasing him and eating the $97 million. But I mean, I just named a bunch of dudes right there that are insanely high-profile players that could be on the move.
You named some dudes.
I named some dudes.
You were naming dudes.
Dudes naming dudes.
Yeah, yes, you were.
Dudes naming dudes.
Raj, to answer your question, I agree with Adam. I think it's trades. We've been told that, especially with quarterbacks or high-profile edge rushers, those impact players, they're not quite there in free agency. They're not necessarily there in the draft outside of the top 10. So I think you have to get interesting trades that are going to be the high impact moves here in this offseason. So I'm going to go with trades as my answer.
All right, that does it for one-on-one. You both did well, but I think I won today. Thanks, guys.
Well, we're all winners because Laura texted us saying that she didn't get the reference of crab juice, a Simpsons reference from Abdalla, because she wasn't paying attention to us.
I wouldn't be paying attention.
That says everything you need to know about our show.
I wouldn't be paying attention to us either.
I love it. It's great. I love it. Laura's the best. It's fantastic. And that's a perfect example of this show.
Yeah.
Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports, sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance, protecting your business vehicles 24/7. See if you can save at progressivecommercial.com. Did you watch Michigan and Duke this weekend? Saturday night?
I am Duke.
I'm Duke. I'm there. I'm
Yeah.
Coach K.
I watched so much I watched more college
Same.
basketball on Saturday than I have the entire
I
season
watched
combined.
a lot of basketball, college and pro this weekend. Did we see a preview to the national championship game in college basketball? We'll talk about that next.
It's a heavyweight Big 12 showdown. Houston at Kansas, with the Jayhawks needing a statement win in the worst way. Tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern, on Westwood One and the Westwood One Sports app.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
This is Bleck and Abdalla on Westwood One Sports. Here's Chris Bleck and Adam Abdalla.
You can watch us each and every day on YouTube. Like and subscribe to Bleck and Abdalla Show on YouTube. New content posted daily. And also, our live stream is right there. You can watch the show live. We're in our new studio, our permanent home now at WLS 890 AM here in Chicago, broadcasting live each and every day. Want to say shout out to Odyssey Chicago for putting up with Bleck and Abdalla for the first 2 months of the show. We started on January 4th. And we've been there ever since. And shout out to 104.3 The Score, Mitch Rosen, Ryan Porth for putting up with us. If you listen to Nick Costos before Bleck and Abdalla each and every day, you hear Kenny's Corner with Kenny Henderson. So Kenny's been putting up with Bleck and Abdalla this entire time. We've been hanging out in Kenny's Corner. Shout out to Kenny and all the great work he does and for helping Bleck and Abdalla in the first 2 months. But now, this is our permanent studio going forward. So if you're listening to the show and you want to watch us, you can do this each and every day on YouTube. Bleck and Abdalla Show on YouTube. You can watch the show. And we're in our new studios, which we have windows. So we can see the outside world, Abdalla.
I can see the lake.
It's fantastic.
It's right there.
I watched a lot of college basketball on Saturday. The marquee event on Saturday, Michigan and Duke. Duke won the game 68-63. Do you think that this is a preview to what we'll see in the Final Four? Do you think we'll get the Blue Devils and the Wolverines for the championship in college basketball this season?
I mean, they were great games, so I hope so. I mean, that would be great. If this was a February preview of the Final Four of these teams between Houston and Arizona as well, like those were great games. Both games were great. And I think that with Boozer playing well, with Cam Boozer playing well, I know he was in some foul trouble late in that game, but was able to, score all those points late, came back from being in foul trouble late in that game to put Duke up in that game. I mean, it was just great. Michigan looked all out of sorts, which is rare for them in that game. It was just a great day of basketball. And I think that if we get those four teams, which is the tournament, you can get anybody. But if we get those four teams, it's been wide open. If you get those four teams in the Final Four, I think we're going to get a very, very good competitive Final Four.
Yeah, we had games all day long, like you mentioned, that were fantastic to watch. I was watching late night. BYU beats Iowa State 79-69. AJ DeBonsa, to me, is the best player in the country. I know that you mentioned Cam Boozer and what he's doing with Duke to this point this season, but DeBonsa at this moment is the best player. And I think the difference between him and Pearson, as we've seen with Kansas, and Kansas dealing with more issues on trying to get Darren Pearson to play in basketball games, which I think is crazy. For a guy that talented to have this topic come up once again this weekend. Meanwhile, AJ DeBonsa is playing 40 minutes a night. And then speaking to the media after the game saying, I'll play however long they want me to play.
Yeah.
I'll stay out there all game long. He had 29, 10 rebounds, 9 assists against Iowa State on Saturday night. So that was a fantastic game to watch. Late night hoops as well. And if I had to compare DeBonsa to anyone that I remember from back in the day as far as NBA comps go, as we kind of think about the NBA draft and moving forward, he reminds me a lot, the way he moves, like a young Tracy McGrady. Okay. You watch the way that he can glide from the three-point line through the lane, get to the rim. You see the change of hands, the soft touch at the hoop as well. He reminds me a lot of a young, untapped potential Tracy McGrady.
Okay.
Just the way that he moves. So I thought the college basketball was outstanding. Yesterday, the NBA basketball was great. I watched like 4 straight games back to back to back to back. Sorry to Raj and his Nuggets getting beat by the Golden State Warriors with no starters. No one of note, just a bunch of scrappy bench players, Raj. So there you go. Your Nuggets were a bit of a choke job for Denver on the road against the Warriors. But a lot of good basketball. And I know that Adam Abdalla is the Westwood One Sports official fashion hot cop here at the network.
Hello.
You are the official fashion hot cop at the network. Did you see the Lakers retired they revealed a statue for Pat Riley, and he had commentary on the way that coaches are dressed nowadays in the NBA?
I did see this.
Pat Riley wants coaches to go back to the coat and tie look. He said this yesterday to the media. Abdalla, you are the fashion hot cop here at Westwood One Sports. Your thoughts on Pat Riley's thoughts on coaches and their wardrobe?
Well, I think that, listen, I don't mind the coat and tie. I think that each coach should be free to do what they want to. I think that sometimes it's weird that managers wear the uniform that the players wear. I'm looking right at you, baseball.
Okay, baseball managers.
That's weird to me that you suit up and you wear the same stirrups, pants, and shirt and uniform.
Well, but we're talking about the NBA coaches now.
I know.
That
That's
are
what I'm saying.
The practice gear out on the court.
They wear,
Pat Riley says,
and they wear the quarter zips, and
Yes.
everybody's wearing quarter zips and everything. I don't mind that. I feel like everybody is now. That's part of like a lot of business work ever since the pandemic. Everybody dresses a little bit more casual to work now, and I don't see a problem with that. I think with coaching, like, you don't need to wear a 3-piece suit to coach a basketball game anymore. I don't mind it. I think it should be open. If you want to wear a suit, wear a suit. If you want to wear the quarter zip, wear the Q zip. Do whatever you want to do, man.
I think it's about professionalism. I think that's what Pat Riley is pointing to. He was quoted in saying that he thinks the audience wants to see somebody on the sidelines who looks like a leader. And you don't look like a leader unless you're dressed in a suit.
I think
What do you think of that?
I think you look just fine if you're winning. I think you look like a leader if you're winning. I don't think it matters if you're wearing a quarter zip or a suit. I don't think it matters. I don't need to see. I would like to see some bad ties, though, from these coaches to see what it would look like with their bad ties. That would be fun to me. But, like, I don't need it. It's not for me. I don't need it. I'm going to say thumbs down on that. Pat Riley.
All right.
Your slick back hair.
Abdalla, our fashion hot cop here at Westwood One Sports.
Thumbs down.
Kind of a lukewarm take from you. I thought there'd be a little bit more passion there for
Thumbs
the fashion.
down.
Coming up next, players being franchise tagged in the NFL. We'll talk about it.
This is Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will be in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
This is Bleck and Abdalla on Westwood One Sports. Here's Chris Bleck and Adam Abdalla.
That's right. We are on the air until 3 Eastern, and then Jim Rome will take over right here on Westwood One Sports, the Westwood One Sports app, Sirius XM Channel 375. Listening all of our great radio affiliates across the country. It's Bleck and Abdalla live from Chicago. If you want to join the show today, you can call us at 310-840-4910. As the NFL Combine has kicked off in Indianapolis, Abdalla, lots of football to talk about this hour and all week, as we have two players who are rumored and one that has gotten the franchise tag already. The reports from the NFL Network, Kyle Pitts will receive the franchise tag from the Atlanta Falcons. The NFL Network also reporting that the Dallas Cowboys will franchise tag George Pickens. So last week was we saw the date come where you could officially apply a franchise tag to a player. Nothing happened last week, and we got two of them about an hour ago. George Pickens with the Cowboys, and then Kyle Pitts with the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, it makes sense for George Pickens because the Cowboys, we assume, want to trade him and get something for the star wide receiver. He had 9 touchdowns last year, and if he's going to go sign with someone else, you want to get something in return for George Pickens. And with Kyle Pitts, you want his productivity. So you want time to negotiate. You're not going to just let him walk away. So franchise tag him with the hopes of signing him for the long haul. He had more yards last year. He didn't have a lot of touchdowns, but he had 30 more first downs last year than he did the previous year. So he's reliable. He's become a reliable target. And I think with a new offensive system in there, with a better coach in there and Kevin Stefanski, I think that you can get the most out of Kyle Pitts. And so it's an understandable move by both teams, but for very different reasons. And for the Cowboys, though, you might want to consider signing George Pickens, because how are you going to replace that production? Like, if you're not going to use George Pickens in a trade for Max Crosby or for a lot of picks, like a few picks, why don't you just resign George Pickens? Because you might not be able to replace, like I know he's been somewhat difficult to deal with, but if you can work that out, why not just resign him, and instead of trying to replicate that production from somewhere else?
Yeah, I think when you see that Dallas is going to franchise tag George Pickens, I'm guessing this is done with the idea that they are going to trade him. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if they're going to work out a long-term deal with George Pickens. I think it's going to be used because they're trying to go big fish hunting, right? And they're going to cast a wide net, and they're going to try and land Max Crosby. And a part of that would be if you use George Pickens on the franchise tag and you add in the 20th pick overall, which you have two picks here in the first round this year's draft. And if you use one of them paired with George Pickens, you might have a really good chance at landing Max Crosby, which helps your defense out tremendously moving forward.
Yeah, if you can trade Pickens, the 20th overall pick, and it would probably take more than just that, because the bidding is going to start for Max Crosby. You're going to hear rumblings this week. The NFL Combine is starting. Everybody's heading to Indianapolis, where all these players entering the NFL draft are going to start working out. But more importantly, all the GMs, all the front office people are going to be there, and that's when people are going to start talking about Max Crosby. People are going to start talking about Trey Hendrickson and all these guys that are being franchised, with George Pickens included. And if you're going to make a move for Max Crosby, it's going to take more than just Pickens and a first-round pick. It might go up to 2 first-round picks, and I don't think Jerry Jones is going to be willing to part with just that. I think that it could take a first-round pick, maybe something later in the draft, maybe next year's draft, and George Pickens and this first-round pick. But then, again, there's a lot of holes to plug on this defense. They were the worst defense in the NFL last year. Max Crosby coming in isn't fixing everything.
Yeah.
There was the stat that when Micah Parsons was on the field, they were one of the best defenses. And when
Top
Micah
3.
Parsons when he was off the field, they were one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Max Crosby isn't Micah Parsons. He's great. Don't get me wrong. He's not Micah Parsons, though. So Max Crosby coming in isn't an instant fix for your defense. He's a game wrecker, but you still he's up there in age. You need to start getting younger on defense, and you need to start filling some of these other positions on your defense, and trading away 1 or 2 first-round picks and one of your better wide receivers is not a way to improve this team moving forward.
So the combine is taking place in Indianapolis. You have players, you have potential draft picks, you have all of the GMs from all the teams around the NFL, head coaches there as well. Did you see the story over the weekend that Jacksonville is just not participating? Did you see the story? I thought I saw this story over the weekend that Jacksonville, their GM and head coach, won't be at the combine. They don't think it's beneficial to be there.
You've seen that before with teams.
I'm pretty sure I saw that over the weekend.
I feel like this has been... Didn't the Rams do this before? The Rams have done this.
McVay didn't go.
McVay hasn't gone before. Their GM hasn't gone before. You've seen this before, and I understand why you don't do this. If you're a team that has a very high draft pick or very low draft pick, high end number, if you have the 31st or 32nd overall pick, what do you need to see at the combine that you can't see on tape? You can do all these interviews now over Zoom. You can talk to these players over the phone. You can go and meet them in person. You can fly. You can do all these things. You can go and do all these things that you need to. You can go to pro days. You can go, they have team workouts. They have all these things that you need to do. You don't need to sit in Indianapolis for a week and attend all these things to do this. Like, you just don't.
Yeah, GM James Gladstone and Liam Cohen will not be in attendance at the Combine this week for Jacksonville.
I mean,
I would imagine they're sending representation, though.
Okay.
Jacksonville will have scouts. They'll have probably an area scout and all kinds of front office people there. But the GM and the head coach won't be there. That, to me, is interesting. I would want to be there. I think it makes sense to have your GM and your head coach at the NFL Combine.
If my team were not there, I would be upset. I think it would be a bad look. As you and I are broadcasting out of Chicago as Bears fans, if Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson were not there, I would be like, as much need as you need on defense, what are you doing? Why are you not there? Looking at every defensive lineman possible, left tackle possible. Like, what are you doing? You know, like, I just feel like it's bad. I understand, like, if you're a really good team and you can do that, but it's just bad optics, isn't it? Isn't it just bad optics?
I'm reading a blog. It's Black and Teal, and Teal blog, right? Jacksonville Jags blog, right?
Of course.
They ask, with the vast majority of head coaches and GMs attending the Combine and addressing the media, you could argue that this is a quote from the article. You could argue that the Jags brass is acting a little big time for the Combine, but hey, these dudes are feeling themselves these days.
Oh, my God.
After last year's season, getting to the playoffs.
Well, listen, Liam Cohen was he got feisty towards the end when they were playing well. And I just think for the fan, and I know you don't do anything for the fans, right? But
don't you have to give the appearance that you're there doing everything you can to improve the team?
Look, if this is Bill Belichick, and you've been the coach of the Patriots for how many years? Even he's there sitting with the binoculars looking at players, right?
As he mutters to himself, he's sitting there in the stands watching players work out because he loves ball.
That's fine. This is your second year on the job, Liam Cohen. What are you doing? Like, it's just bad. Like, the Rams not going, Sean McVay is a great head coach. Like, they draft well. They also have the philosophy of, F the picks. So that's kind of been their philosophy, is just trade them away for players, and they don't care moving down the line. So they don't really care about picks. But Liam Cohen and the Jags, like, I don't know, just sit there. I don't know, look busy. Walk around.
Look busy.
Get a shrimp cocktail.
Look busy.
Yeah.
I will say, in this day and age, the ability to look busy at all times is very simple.
Yeah.
Just look down at your phone.
Listen, I spent 4 years of high school just looking busy.
Yeah, but that was before computers and phones
exactly.
How much widely available as they are today.
How much easier as it is now? It's so much easier.
It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. ESPN had an article posted a couple days ago. What they did in the article is they ranked the deepest to thinnest positions in NFL free agency and the draft. So they went through position by position as they were sitting here getting ready, getting set for the NFL Combine this week. Which position is the deepest? Which position is the thinnest when you look at free agency, the draft, and you combine everything together? Number one on the list was edge rushers. It goes edge rushers, interior offensive linemen, cornerbacks, running backs, safeties, linebackers, and as you continue to work your way through all of the positions, last was quarterback.
Okay.
Which makes a lot of sense. We know that the free agent class for quarterbacks is not deep.
Yeah.
And we know that if you're looking for a starting quarterback this year in the draft, there's not really a lot there. But edge rushers are number one.
Yeah.
So if you're a team, and we listed off 11 teams where their top need last season heading into this year is an edge rusher. So there are 11 teams out there that need an impact edge rusher, whether it be in the draft or in free agency. An edge rusher is the number one deepest category when you mix in free agency and the draft and everything together.
Now, that should come with a little asterisk. Okay?
Okay.
Because
what do you have?
In the article, it says it's a good year to need any sort of edge rusher at all. It's a bad year to need a truly elite edge rusher unless you would like to send 2 first-round picks to the Raiders for Max Crosby. So there is a caveat to this. You're not going to find the next, unless you want to develop a guy, and a guy can certainly turn into the next Max Crosby or the next Micah Parsons, but there isn't that guy who you assume day one is going to come out of the gate and be the next Max Crosby or Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett. Like, you're not going to find that right away, day one in this draft. There's a lot of depth at edge rusher. There's a lot of elite talent, but you're not getting a franchise-changing, generational type guy at edge rusher.
Yeah.
And that's why you're going to see, I think the market for Max Crosby is going to go from 1 first-round pick and a player, like we talked a lot about last week, to go to 2 first-round picks and a player, because the market out there right now is, like you said, 11 teams. And we know Trey Hendrickson's the elite dude out there, and Max Crosby is the elite dude out there. And if the Bengals decide to franchise tag Trey Hendrickson, which they could, they might decide to get greedy and say, well, if Max Crosby is going to get 2 first-round picks, why don't we get 1 for Trey? And then you've got teams bidding for Trey Hendrickson, and Trey Hendrickson is sitting on the sidelines all pissed off, you know?
Right.
Because he can't move, because the Bengals have decided they want a first-round pick for him. And he's got to decide whether or not he's going to play on the franchise tag, even though you know he's not going to, because he doesn't want to be a Bengal anymore. So it is a good year to want an edge rusher. Yes, it's deep.
There's options out there. There's mid-level options. There's draftable options.
Yeah.
There's high-ticket, really great player options.
Yes.
Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson are both theoretically available.
Yes.
You know, if your team wanted to make a splash, make a bold move, you can go out there and trade draft picks or a player to go get that done. That's absolutely something that could take place in this offseason. Now, I think when we look at those teams that need pass rush help, it really, the impact on whether or not you should go down the Max Crosby path or you go down the path for Hendrickson has a lot to do with your cap situation. There are teams who need edge rush help who have a ton of cap space. Tennessee and Washington being 2 of them, namely. I mean, Tennessee has the most cap space by far in the NFL here in this offseason. Mm-hmm. The Commanders are 5th with the most available cap space. So if either of those teams want to address it by making a move for Trey Hendrickson and then giving him a new contract, that would make sense. If you're a team that's not in the best situation for cap space, but you need edge rush help, I'm looking at Kansas City. I'm looking at Dallas. I'm looking at Chicago. Those teams, maybe the best option is giving up a player, a current player, and a draft pick and landing Max Crosby. I could see that.
And that's probably going to be the move if those teams do it. And I would see Chicago doing that. I could see Kansas City doing that. If you pair Max Crosby with Chris Jones, that's insane. You know, that defensive line for Kansas City would be nuts. So I think for Chicago, we talked about it, before. You've got DJ Moore, who, because Chicago has Luther Burden, they've got Colston Loveland at tight end, they've got Cole Kmet at tight end, they've got a bunch of wide receivers that are lining up to take the spot of DJ Moore. That now, if you move DJ Moore, who just got a new deal, who got his deal reworked as well, that you could swap those contracts, DJ Moore and Max Crosby. You could throw in a first-round pick, 25th overall. You probably have to throw in a little extra. And like I said, this market's going to be up there. It might end up taking 2 first-round picks. And for the Bears GM, Ryan Poles, that might be when he says, guys, I'm not giving up 2 first-round picks and DJ Moore and a few extra picks, because that's just too much for a 28-year-old defensive end. Like last year with Micah Parsons, he's 26. Big difference between a 26-year-old and a guy who's going to be 29. Like, that is the big difference between these two players.
Okay, so if the 2 teams trying to land Max Crosby are the Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys,
okay,
who do you trust more to get this done? Ryan Poles and the Bears or Jerry Jones and the Cowboys? Because, Jerry's always trying to wheel and deal.
He's wheeling and dealing.
I'm wheeling and dealing. I see Max Crosby. I'm going to try and wheel and deal, and we're going to get Max in a Cowboy helmet. Who do you trust to get it done? I would trust the Cowboys to overspend. And to maybe give up way more to land a single player. And I could see Chicago being a little bit more conservative, but also trying to take a big swing.
I would also trust the Raiders to take the Cowboys deal, because Pickens is a better wide receiver than DJ Moore. And also, the pick is better. You've got the 20th overall pick.
Yeah.
And any pick you get is going to be better than Chicago's pick at 25. So if you want another edge rusher, you can get it. If you want to get another defensive lineman, a defensive tackle, you can get it. If you want a corner, you can get it. And every consecutive pick is going to be higher. So if it ends up being 2 firsts, that pick could be higher. If it ends up being a second-round pick that year, that's going to be higher. Whatever it is going to end up being higher because you're dealing with the Cowboys as opposed to the Chicago Bears who have a lower pick.
It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. If you want to join the conversation and talk with Bleck Abdalla, you can call us at 310-840-4910. How many teams have a Super Bowl window that's open in this offseason heading into next year? How many teams fit into that category? We'll talk about that next.
How long will the Steelers wait around for a decision from Aaron Rodgers? Or could Mike McCarthy and company be in the market for a QB in free agency? Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
This is Bleck and Abdalla on Westwood One Sports. Here's Chris Bleck and Adam Abdalla.
If you go to NFL.com, Bucky Brooks has a list. He has 7 teams who are in their Super Bowl window heading into this offseason, into next season. Super Bowl window teams. Here's the list that Bucky Brooks put together on NFL.com. It's Bleck and Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports and the Westwood One Sports app. Starting at the top, Seattle. They just won the Super Bowl. They're obviously in their Super Bowl window. The Rams are the second team he lists off. 3, it's the Patriots. 4, the Eagles. 5, the Broncos. 6, the Bears. And 7, Jacksonville, the Jags, the Jaguars. So those are the 7 teams that Bucky Brooks lists off as in their Super Bowl window heading into the offseason and into this season. I feel like there's a few teams missing from this conversation.
Interesting.
Who would you add to this list? You're looking all over for.
I'm looking under my computer.
Who else could be added to this list?
I'm looking for the Bills.
I feel like this is a bit skimpy.
List. I'm looking for the Bills. I'm looking for the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as long as you have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid is still coaching Patrick Mahomes, you have a chance. Like, they might not have the best team next year, but they're definitely fielding a playoff team. And the expectation by the organization is that the Bills are supposed to go back to the AFC Championship game, whether they do or not. But by just moving Joe Brady from the offensive coordinator into the head coaching spot, their expectation is going to the AFC Championship game. So their Super Bowl window is still definitely open if you're a Buffalo Bills fan.
No doubt. And if you go to DraftKings and you look at the Super Bowl odds for next season, there are 5 teams in the odds that are obviously, they're not included on Bucky Brooks's list.
Yeah.
Which are obviously there. The team with the 3rd best odds, you mentioned Buffalo. They're there. Baltimore was not mentioned on the list. The Ravens with Jesse Minter as the new head coach. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Kansas City. And then you have 2 teams from the NFC North that are not the Chicago Bears that have better odds to win the Super Bowl next year than the Chicago Bears. And that's the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. So right there's 5 teams. Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City, Green Bay, Detroit. All of those teams are in their Super Bowl window. All of them.
Yeah. And
you can't argue that any one of those teams is not in their window.
A couple of those teams, you mentioned the Packers and the Lions, have a better chance to win their division than the Bears do. And he's got the Bears in there. So that's odd to me. I mean, someone from the AFC North has to win that division, so I'm surprised that they're not in there. I mean, look, it's going to be tough for them to move on from that in the playoffs, but they still are going to make the playoffs. And I feel like once you make the playoffs, if you have Aaron Rodgers, if you have Lamar Jackson, or if you have Joe Burrow, you can make a run in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if any of those teams ended up in the Super Bowl if they make the playoffs. So to me, if you make the playoffs, you're in a window because anybody can make a run, right? Like anybody can get hot at the right time and make a run. We saw it with the New England Patriots. They got hot at the right. I mean, look, they were one of the best teams throughout the regular season. I understand
lucky,
that.
Lucky, a little lucky.
They had a charmed season. And they got very lucky. They got very lucky in the postseason to make it to the Super Bowl. And then we saw what happened in the Super Bowl when they faced a team that had their quarterback, and that quarterback was playing decent, and they faced the best defense in the NFL. We saw it.
Like that's also that's like total shade at Seattle too. It's like you beat a team by just having your quarterback play decent.
Well, like it's true. Sam Darnold didn't play like he did when he played against the Rams in the NFC Championship game.
No, I'm with you. I would also throw in some more teams into this championship kind of window. You know, San Francisco, they're in their championship window. I don't think that the Los Angeles Chargers have had the success that they should have had to this point, but they're in their championship window. The Chargers, I think they are. I think Houston, I think Jacksonville are in the conversation. I think when you look at it, getting beyond Jacksonville and Houston in the odds, there are two teams right there. Chicago is right behind them, and then Cincinnati. Cincinnati should be in their championship window. They should. And Chicago certainly, and Bucky Brooks points to Chicago as being one of the teams.
Yeah.
But like, I think we could say teams in their championship windows heading into this offseason, I think we could expand this puppy to like 14, 16 teams. Well, like that's the current state of the NFL right now, is that, as you mentioned, anyone can really get hot in the final month and a half of the season into the playoffs, and you can win a Super Bowl.
I think based on the way when we looked at the win totals from last week when they came out on DraftKings, is that you had how many teams that were 10.5 and 9.5, and if you're in the 10.5 and 9.5 category, that means that to me you are in that I'm going to make the playoffs kind of area, and that means that you have a chance to make the playoffs and go on a run to make the Super Bowl. Now, the reason, if I had to get into Bucky Brooks's brain to guess why he didn't put the Chargers in the Bengals.
Inception.
It's probably, if I had to incept his mind.
You and I both are going to incept Bucky Brooks's mind. Yes.
Yeah. And,
let's get in there.
And play that classical song,
sure.
And then we'll be falling and try to set up the falling. Yeah. Don't sing ever again.
I wasn't singing. It was like kind of humming.
No, that was not. No, humming means your mouth is closed. Your mouth was open. That's a hum. That's a hum. The other is a sing. As soon as mouth is open, sing. Closed is hum.
Sorry, Mr. Choir. Jeez.
I mean, I dabbled in theater in high school. I'm just saying. That it's because of the offensive line with the Bengals and the Chargers, because they don't have one. I mean, they're there. They're present. But we saw they had like 30 offensive line combinations for the Chargers in the regular season and the postseason game that they played. And Herbert was a wreck. And with the Bengals, Burrow can't stay healthy because of that offensive line. And the defense is awful. And they're getting rid of their best defensive player. Like, how is your defense going to get better if you're letting your best defensive player walk? And I understand he doesn't want to play there. That's fine. But that's your own doing. If you would have signed Trey Hendrickson to an extension when he wanted one, we wouldn't be in this place where you're letting your best defensive player walk. So I tend to agree with Bucky Brooks on that portion of it, where I wouldn't put the Chargers in there just yet until I see what they do with their offensive line this offseason. Now, if they turn it around and they draft some players and they sign some players and then maybe they make a trade and they revamp that offensive line, you can absolutely turn that around. Because the way you mentioned the Chicago Bears a year ago, wouldn't have said about that about the Chicago Bears. They completely changed their offensive line and replaced 4 out of the 5 players on that line. Now they're all of a sudden in a Super Bowl window because of that.
Yeah, you got to fix the line.
Exactly.
You got to keep Justin Herbert upright.
Yeah.
That's certainly their number one objective with the Chargers this year, and I think McDaniel will do that.
For sure.
I think that's going to be the case. So we're talking football with you at 310-840-4910. It's Bleck Abdalla each and every weekday right here on Westwood One Sports. There's also news from the NFL Competition Committee. The co-chair, Rich McKay, he said on Sunday that the NFL is not anticipating an attempt to ban the tush push this year. So last year, that was a big point of conversation and debate in the offseason. A lot of people wanted the tush push banned. A lot of it was the Green Bay Packers were the team that originally suggested the ban last year.
Soft.
So the competition committee does not think any team is going to propose banning the tush push in this season. I think that's great. I don't understand the mentality of because someone's really good at something, we need to create a rule to then not allow them to be as good as they are at this one specific thing that we struggle at stopping.
Yeah.
That's a weak-minded way to go about competition and athletics. And so there are teams in this past season that limited the success that Philly or Buffalo had. The league had two teams. This is from the ESPN article on the topic. Two teams utilized the play more than anyone else, Philadelphia and Buffalo. Overall, the NFL saw slightly more tush-push plays in 2025 with 112 than they did in 2024 with 101. The Eagles attempted it 27 times. The Bills attempted it 17 times. But with that, with the amount of attempts that took place, the conversion rate of the tush-push fell from 2005 from what it was in 2024. So it had an 82% success rate from 2022 to 24. Last season, it was at 76.8. So even though teams were using it more, it wasn't as potent. It wasn't as successful as it was a couple of years ago. And I think it's much to do about nothing. Figure out a way to stop it. And I think with your team, when your team's running it and it's successful, I don't think anyone has a problem with it.
Well, it looks like teams have found, for the most part, ways to stop it. That, or teams realized that last year was their best chance and they couldn't find a way to stop it. So they just said, well, we're not going to do this again next year. Because the best way to stop it is find a way to officiate it. Because all last year, all we got were screenshots and the slowest of slow-mo videos of the Eagles specifically jumping early or false starting or whatever it was, and the officials weren't doing anything. And everybody thought that was going to be enough evidence this year to be like, well, the officials just aren't calling it because now that means that they're just trying to get enough evidence to ban it this year. Well, guess not. So teams are going to be pushing tushes for a while. Because find ways to stop it. And it's not like they tried to claim player safety. That's not a thing. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
You don't get, players have not, they'll say, okay, the threat of injury. The threat of injury happens on have you watched football? The threat of injury happens on every single play. Players will tell you it's an uncomfortable play to have a bunch of dudes lying on top of you like that if you're an offensive lineman, but there haven't been significant injuries, like a lot, enough to ban the play. You changed the kickoff rule because of injury. Okay, fine. And because you want it to be more dynamic. You literally named it the dynamic kickoff. Like you changed the name and called it the dynamic kickoff because you wanted it to be more dynamic.
We have new Sprite. It's new it's remix.
It's called Sprite.
It's the same Sprite, but we added a different berry flavor to it, and it's remixed, even though it's the same product.
And I think now, because
dynamic kickoff.
You said more teams are trying it. Maybe teams are like, well, we maybe figured out how to do it. So now more teams are like, maybe it can work to our advantage too. And so now teams don't want to try to ban it. And then that's what you're going to see.
If there's any rule in the NFL that you would change, to me, it's not the tush push. I would say if there was something the league needed to change, it would be the ability to use a challenge to question a pass interference call. I feel like when I'm watching games, that's the thing that is wrong most often that frustrates me the most.
Okay.
Is when there's a flag called when it shouldn't be called, or if someone's just blatantly taken out of a play and pass interference should be called. But I don't want those plays to be reviewed every single play because then we're really bogging down the flow of a game.
Okay. Here's my solution.
I think you should, as a coaching staff, be able to utilize a challenge on a flag that's thrown for pass interference.
I agree with you. I also think my thing is the egregious missing of face mask calls. Like that happens so often.
Well, especially
to
with a
quarterbacks.
quarterback. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you should be, if you see it and it's not called, you should be able to throw it. You should be able to throw your flag and say, hey, you guys missed this. Like, I'm not saying you should be able to throw it on every missed call, because we're going to throw it on every missed holding call? The game will take 7 hours.
Well, that's my point. Is like, I don't want every play going back to replay to see whether or not every single call was right.
But you've got times where a quarterback's head is completely turned around and there's no call. And it's like, what are we doing? How are you standing right there and missing that, like in a crucial game? Like, it's happened in playoff games. It's happened in games to decide whether teams are going to the playoffs or not. And that, to me, that's my biggest problem, is that you're standing right there. You're watching the most important player on the field and you miss that call. That's my biggest issue.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, and especially with the official who's in the back looking at the play, looking at the pocket. Usually he's the one that's in charge of calling the holding penalties on the offensive line. Missing that and missing the head tilt of a quarterback who gets a lineman, grabs a piece of the helmet and not calling a face mask on that, and especially against a quarterback, that's a 15-yard penalty.
Exactly.
It's a huge game changer. That is certainly a huge problem.
Yeah, and I think that if you can throw the flag, you shouldn't be able to do it every 1,000 times a game. Maybe you're allowed to do it once or twice or something like that. Like, otherwise, coaches are going to be throwing it every single play. If they see like the slightest little head tilt, they're going to be throwing it. So I think there's a way you can regulate it, but I think there should be something that you should do for that.
In the NBA, we talked last week about a player who might be a good value bet for MVP in the NBA. I think as the days go by, Abdalla, it seems like more people are starting to get on board with this player possibly winning the MVP. We'll tell you who that is coming up next.
The Cowboys are reportedly open to trading George Pickens. Could the superstar wideout be the missing piece for a top team like the Bills, Bears, or Broncos? Your free agent headquarters, Westwood One Sports.
At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 4 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 3 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 2 minutes. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute, 30 seconds. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 1 minute. Stations, this is your final time check. At the tone, the broadcast will begin in 30 seconds.
Is Bleck and Abdalla on Westwood One Sports. Here's Chris Bleck and Adam Abdalla.
We're on the air until 3 Eastern. Jim Rome will take over after us right here on Westwood One Sports. Make sure you check out our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, and Odyssey. And also, you can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Bleck and Abdalla Show. Thank you to Raj and Laura for producing today's show, Bleck and Abdalla. We'll return tomorrow at noon Eastern right here on Westwood One Sports. Last week, I mentioned to you, Adam, that Cade Cunningham is now third in the odds for MVP in the NBA. I said to you, that's a name that we should keep our eyes on as a possible guy who could end up winning the MVP if things go his way here in the final part of the NBA season. We also talked about last week at the Garden. He put up 42. The Pistons are the best team in the East, and we were talking a little Pistons basketball, and that Cade Cunningham and the Detroit Pistons are a really cool story to follow in the NBA.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the weekend takes place, right? And this week is a big week for the Detroit Pistons. They have 3 games that are on national TV, all against really good teams. Tonight on Peacock, they face off against the Spurs at home. Wednesday at home, they host the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's an ESPN television game. And then on Friday night, they host Cleveland at home, ESPN television. So they've got 3 games this week. They have the 2 best teams in the Western Conference going into Detroit. And then they have Cleveland, who is a team who's trying to get to the finals this year in the Eastern Conference, one of the better Eastern Conference teams. So San Antonio, Oklahoma City, and Cleveland all against the Detroit Pistons this week. So it's a big week for the Pistons, and they will be featured on national TV in multiple situations. In 3 of those games this week, they will be on national TV. Right now, Cade Cunningham on DraftKings is the third best odds to win the MVP. He's behind Nikola Jokic at plus 270, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is still the favorite at minus 140. So that's going into this week. But you know how this works. The Pistons, if they win these games against top teams this week on national TV, the conversation around Cade Cunningham is only going to get a little bit louder for him winning the MVP. And then I saw Tom Haberstroh put out there a stat and kind of like a breakdown on like the eligibility for winning the MVP. You're aware of this, that you have to play at least 65 games
Yes, you
to
do.
qualify for these postseason awards, which means a couple of guys who are ahead of Cade Cunningham in the odds, they can't miss many games.
No, they cannot.
To get to that marker. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can only miss 6 more games this season. 6 more. If he misses 6 more, he's not eligible. Luka Doncic, he can only miss 5. Victor Wembanyama can only miss 4. And Nikola Jokic, who I think a lot of people could point to as being the best player in the world right now, if he misses 1 more game, he won't qualify for the postseason awards. So by default, there is a chance that Cade Cunningham might be your MVP this season based on the availability of those other guys in front of him for the MVP race.
That's interesting because they are number 1 in the East right now. They're 5.5 games up on the Celtics. Now, let's say it goes the opposite way for Cade Cunningham and the Pistons.
And they lose these games this week?
And they lose these games this week.
Okay, they lose these games this week.
There's a lot of primetime games for another team that is also in the East. That is quite the surprise, given the injuries to one of their stars.
Oh, yeah.
And
did you perhaps watch them beat the Lakers yesterday?
Their other star happens to be playing.
He's playing great.
Insanely well. And has their team sitting very nicely at second place. Now, it's only by a game, but second place in the East with the Boston Celtics only 5.5 game back of those Detroit Pistons. And that would be Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Does Jaylen Brown have a chance here? I know it's the Pistons, but, this is the Celtics we're talking about. And, nobody had the Celtics where they are, maybe making the playoffs, but not second in the East right now, given how Tatum's been out the entire season, and this was going to be this way. And he is 30-1 right now to win MVP. He's even behind Victor Wembanyama. But given the way you said this could shake out with guys missing games and things like that, if this goes south for the Pistons and the Celtics keep winning these games and Brown keeps playing the way he did yesterday, I believe he had 32 last night. He had 32 last night. He had 23 against the Warriors in the game before on Thursday. He's playing really well. Is there a chance for Jaylen Brown?
Yeah, for the season, averaging 29, 7 rebounds, about 5 assists per game for Jaylen Brown. I think that if you're looking for an MVP from the Eastern Conference, it's one of those 2 players. It's Cunningham or Brown. That's it. That's for the entire conference. I think otherwise you're looking to the West. And then at that point with the Western Conference, it's the availability of players and whether or not they're going to make it based on playing enough games in this season. So I do think you make a good point there that the Jaylen Brown situation with the Celtics, I did not expect Boston to be this good. And I didn't expect Jaylen Brown to kind of take over all of the workload of being a number 1 star for the team and being able to be that all-star that we've seen. And last night, being able to just take over games, both ends of the floor, offense and defense, leading the Celtics. And it really has spoken to me how good Jaylen Brown is, because we know that he's won a championship. But I think people have always viewed his game as he's an accessory piece to someone else who's better, Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
And Tatum was it was his coming out party when the Celtics won their championship. And this feels very much like, I don't want to stretch for the comparison too much, but in the 90s, there was a season where Michael Jordan was not playing for the Chicago Bulls. He went and played baseball, right? People are familiar that this took place. The season that Jordan was gone, Scottie Pippen took over the team and was an MVP candidate.
Yes.
That season. Because he was so valuable to the Chicago Bulls. Now, they lost in the playoffs to the New York Knicks. Controversial call. We don't have to go down the road on what took place in that situation. And, Scotty, it didn't turn out great for him because that was also the same series where Tony Kukoc got the final shot in a game, and then Scotty subbed himself out of a game, and he was pouting on the bench. Whole different thing. This does kind of feel like that season because Tatum is not available right now. He might come back. He might not come back. But Brown has played great basketball this season.
Well, Tatum came back to practice this weekend. He was back at practice.
Yeah, they've been kind of sketchy on committing that he's actually practicing.
Yeah.
But more so saying that he was out there.
Let's say he comes back. The Celtics are 12-1 to win the NBA championship right now.
That's a pretty good long shot.
12-1 to win the NBA championship right now. If Tatum comes back.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they've got to. The way the Celtics or the way the Thunder and the Nuggets are priced at plus 135 for the Thunder is absurd. Like, I feel like the Celtics, if Tatum comes back and is playing well, like that's automatically going to go down. So if you're going to bet the Celtics right now, like that's the move, is to do it right now before he comes back. I saw like some people saying that you maybe beginning of March, maybe first or second week of March, he could come back. That gives him more than enough time to get into good basketball shape before the playoffs start and to see how he's responding to the injury and coming back from and get into, the basketball and to get his cardio and all that kind of stuff for the playoffs. And I think he'd be fine for the start of the playoffs.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think that's a good spot to kind of watch.
I like that.
I think that's an interesting angle there because if Tatum does come back, I do think that they have a really great chance to win the East. And I don't think that that's necessarily taking anything against what Detroit's done to this point.
No.
They've definitely been the surprise of the NBA. I think there's two items. It's Detroit being the best team in the Eastern Conference in that Wembanyama and the Spurs are this good this quickly.
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to jump immediately to the second best team in the conference because I think the gap between the Nuggets and the Spurs and the Thunder, there's like a 4 or 5 game gap between the Spurs and the Nuggets.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think that the Spurs would be at that point. To see Detroit right now sitting at 42-13, they host the Spurs tonight. The game will be on Peacock television. So it'll be a national televised game, and it's definitely going to be must-see TV. And I think that if we're planning on Cade Cunningham to win the MVP, the time is now to jump on that bet.
Absolutely. And if not, Jaylen Brown. Just throwing it out there.
If not, and
a sprinkle.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has to play. Can't miss more games.
No games.
It's Bleck Abdalla here on Westwood One Sports. Jim Rome and the Jim Rome Show is coming up next.
This is Westwood One Sports.